Hi everyone, welcome to UCTV Alive for Kids. It's really great that we have so many schools coming back to watch us, and we've got probably about 60 students watching today, which is really fantastic, and we're likely to get more trickling in over the next 5 minutes or so. If you haven't watched UCTV Alive for Kids before, I'll tell you a little bit about it. So we're a monthly webinar. Schools can register around Tasmania and watch it during class time. It's aimed at Year 5 and 6 students, but anyone really can watch. And we bring someone on, a different person on every single month. This month, we're so lucky to be doing a Tasmania Reads episode, and we've got Alyssa Bermudez coming on the show. So Alyssa she's got such an interesting story. She is a born and bred New Yorker. She grew up in Queens, but now she lives in Tasmania. And she found that when she moved to Australia, a lot of people asked her what it was like growing up in New York, and especially with asking her questions about what it was like living in New York around the time of September 11. And she happens to have written all these diaries, so she has access to these beautifully crafted diaries from when she was young, and she's written this book, and she's here to talk to us about it. But before I welcome Alyssa to the screen, just a couple of things. So your microphone and camera has been disabled. So that's just to protect everyone. We're recording today's episode so that we can share it on the Peter Underwood Centre website. During the Q&A break, we'll put a QR code up that people can scan to watch old episodes. And you can, during that Q&A break, feel free to send through any types of questions. I'd also really like to acknowledge country. So today we're all zooming in from land, sea, and waterways online. And so we're all coming in from different places and different countries. And I'd really like to pay my deep respect to all the traditional owners in your different areas, and to recognise the Aboriginal people that did not make elder status, and to recognise the Tasmanian Aboriginal communities that continue to care the country. But for now, I'm going to welcome onto the screen Alyssa. Welcome to the screen, Alyssa. Hi, Alyssa.
Hi.
How are you?
Sorry.
That's okay.
I'm good. How are you? My dog Miko, who's very excited to see that someone else just got home right as we're doing this.
No, I love that. Hi, Miko. Please feel free to keep holding Miko while you're chatting to us. We've got an amazing video that you have made to show everyone that talks about the books. It's really interesting. But before we do that, could you tell everyone, how did you end up in Tassie? Why did you move from New York to Tasmania?
Well, I guess it's a tale as old as time. I was traveling and met a Tasmanian man overseas, and that's really the long story short.
Yeah.
And I've been here for the last 9 years.
Yeah, awesome. So you live in Hobart?
I do. I live in Margate at the moment.
Amazing. Oh, well, we're so lucky to have you here in Tassie, and we're so lucky to have you talking to us during Tasmania Reads Week.
Thank you so
should
much
we
for
just
having
go
me.
ahead? No, thank you for coming on. Should I go ahead and play this video that you've made?
Yes.
Yes. Awesome. Okay. All right, everyone. I'm just going to do a screen share, and then we can get started.
Hi, my name is Alyssa Bermudez, and I'm the creator of Big Apple Diaries. Big Apple Diaries is about my life as a young girl growing up in New York City around the time of the terrorist attacks in 2001. It shows the trials and tribulations of being a middle school student before, during, and after a life-changing, significant event. I'd love to share a little bit about my process with you, how I turned my very real diaries into a book, this graphic novel. I was always interested in art. I wanted to work in fashion someday, and I filled the margins of all my notebooks and diaries with drawings of shoes because I wanted to be a shoe designer. I was worried about boys, fitting in, getting good grades, getting into a good high school. My family life felt a bit complicated at times too, because each parent lived in a different location, so I had 2 apartments to keep track of. All of these things felt big because they impacted my day-to-day life. I wrote about these things in my diary, and that was a way for me to process all of it. I was definitely impacted by the diary of Anne Frank, and I thought that no adult could ever understand what really went on in the mind of a young teen. The terrorist attacks in the city changed my life, the lives of everyone around me, but also the general energy in New York City. That changed too. And I wanted to show all of those things in Big Apple Diaries. All of the middle school trials and tribulations, crushes and drama, everything felt smaller, and everything that mattered before mattered a little bit less after that. At times it felt like we were in chaos and unsure. We were scared, and not knowing what was going to happen next was overwhelming. But there were so many moments of joy and hope and laughter in between as well. So I wanted to show those elements of going back to normal life. So how did I mine through my diaries to put this book together? It was challenging at first. I initially didn't have a thread connecting all of the diary entries together. I just started pulling some of the ones that were my favorite or the funniest ones out. And over time, I realized what the connecting threads were. I eventually gave myself permission to move things around and change things up a little bit. That unblocked the writing process for me, and it allowed me to add things in that I might not have written about, but they actually did happen. I didn't write about September 11th in my diary at the time, but I eventually wrote about it 10 years later because I didn't want to forget how it felt that day and what actually happened in my own small experience with it. I think reflecting on it at that time allowed me to look back on it with a bit more depth and empathy. One of the other important parts of developing this book was my physical location in the world. I lived in New York City my whole life and never moved anywhere except for maybe a few months here and there. So when I moved across the world to Australia, my views on New York City changed as well. No one ever asked me about September 11th while I was living in New York City because we were all connected to it in some way, and it wasn't really a conversation starter. But when I moved across the world, no one had a personal connection to it really, so everyone asked me about it, and it was a bit jarring to be asked about it so many times. So I think that's one of the reasons why I made sure to include that side of this in Big Apple Diaries. It made me realize how important it was to share that experience, especially with people that weren't there and weren't alive yet. And my hope is to show how it felt at that time, being a young teen, going through a significant change in the world. My diaries are honest, they're raw, they're embarrassing. There's a lot of mishaps along the way growing up. And I wanted to make sure I included all of those things because they're real and authentic, and they were directly from my heart at that time. For me, Big Apple Diaries has been a healing experience in some ways, reflecting on a part of my life that is so long ago. And now that I'm a grown-up, I can empathize with the grown-ups around my life at that time too, what it was like for my teachers, my parents, and everyone else in the city. I hope that readers can relate to the heartfelt moments in this book, experiencing big changes and navigating where to go next. I hope they can feel that it's normal to not always feel normal. I encourage readers to reflect on the world around them. Start writing in a diary or continue writing in a diary about the world today. If you like drawing, add drawings to it as well. We're living together in this new world and experiencing another big change. So maybe one day you can look back on what you've written and remind yourself of a time that you overcame a big challenge. I hope you enjoy Big Apple Diaries.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for watching that. And Alyssa, it's such a great video. Thank you for letting us play it.
Thank you. It is funny listening to myself.
No, you're a great speaker. And it's you're able to really share lots of the thinking that went into making the book. And I love those videos of your actual real diaries. It's really special to be able to see those. What we're going to do now is we're going to put on a 3-minute break screen so that the schools watching have a chance to send in questions. So I did a bit of a tally while the video is playing, and it's actually about 70 students we've got watching. So don't be shy. Please, whoever's operating the keyboard in your classroom, if it's a teacher or someone else, please make sure you're sending in lots of questions while this break screen is on. You can ask the questions anonymously if you like, but if you want to include your school name and the first name of the student asking the question, we can do a little shout out. But I'm going to play this video now. So we'll see you in about 3 minutes. Bye. Thank you so much, everyone, for sending in so many questions. We've especially had a lot from Molesworth, but Romain and Taruna, you've also sent in questions. So thank you so much. Are you ready, Alyssa, for me to read some of them out?
Yes, can't wait.
Yeah, for sure. So Molesworth, one of the first questions that they sent in was, is it hard making books?
Gosh, well, the short answer is yes, it is hard, but it is rewarding as well. Some of the hardest parts are getting the confidence to put something that I've written that's so personal to me and putting that out there into the world. That's probably one of the hardest parts, to have that confidence to think, yes, this is a story that I should share with people and people do want to read it.
Yeah, for sure. So it's really, yeah, overcoming that, maybe the nerves that's at the start about starting to write and to share something that's actually happened to you. Really interesting. I'm going to try to speed through as many of these as I can. Sonia, who's from Romain Park Primary, asks, where can we purchase your books?
You can purchase my books anywhere that books are sold. If they're not physically in the store, you can ask them to order it for you. You can definitely ask your library to get in a copy for you as well. But they're sold everywhere.
Amazing. And Libraries Tasmania, do they have copies in some of their libraries?
They do.
They do. Awesome. So you can borrow it, or you maybe could order it for your school library even. You could ask a librarian at the school if they could get a copy in.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. There's some questions from an anonymous attendee, and I assume that those are from Taruna. So the first question that Taruna asked was, how many books have you written? Is it a set of books or just one?
I've written Big Apple Diaries and a book that's coming out, a follow-up. And other than that, I've illustrated about 12 books.
Amazing. That's heaps.
Yeah.
So books that other people have, some of those are books that other people have written, and you've done the illustrations?
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Sharon from Molesworth Primary has also asked, what was your experience of September 11th?
Well, you can find the full experience in Big Apple Diaries, but the brief experience with it was that I was in year 8. It was the first week of school because school starts in September in the US, well, in New York. And a lot of my family and friends had connections to people who either worked in the Twin Towers, which is where the attack was in New York, including my dad, who worked in the World Trade Center. And so it really hit close to home for me. Both of my parents were okay, but it was a very, very scary day for me as a young teen, experiencing something like that, and being told at school what happened, and really seeing the change in the whole community after it happened as well.
Must have been really scary.
It definitely was.
Yeah. Well, thank you for answering that, and I'm keen to read your book as well in full. So I'm looking forward to finding out a little bit more. Molesworth again has asked, how long did it take you to write Big Apple Diaries?
It's a good question. It took a very long time. You could say that I started writing it when I was like 11 or 12 because it was based on my real diaries. But once I actually started formatting it into a book, it was a few years to actually just kind of come back to it every now and then. And then once I had a book deal and I had to write it in its completed state, it took me about a year to write it and another year to illustrate it.
Yeah, amazing. That kind of answers a few other questions that have come through. Romaine had asked about how old were you when you decided to use your diaries in a story, which is sort of similar to how old you were when you started writing your diaries. Yes, it sounds like 11 or 12, you decided to start writing them. And then how old were you when you started writing the actual book?
Well, I started writing diaries even earlier. I think we had to write a diary in second grade, and I think my diary in second grade was like, this is what I ate for breakfast. This is what I ate for lunch. But I started writing more daily, probably in like year 4 and 5. That's probably when it was like, this is what I do almost every day. And then I did take a break for a while and came back to my diaries when I was packing up stuff from my mom's apartment. And she's like, what are you going to do with all these diaries? And I was like, oh, maybe I should look through them. And that was when I was maybe around 21, 22.
Yeah.
So that was kind of when the spark sort of occurred to me, like, these are really funny and weird, but also relatable to young teens now as well. So I think I should share them in some way.
Yeah.
And then it took probably the next 10 years until I actually published Big Apple Diaries, but it was always in the background of my mind, like I should do something with this.
Yeah, definitely. I think I might have getting my schools mixed up. So Taruna, I think, is Amberley. And Taruna asks, how did you feel once you published your book?
Gosh, I had a big wave of different emotions because it's so personal, putting my real life diaries out there. I think, 12-year-old me would have just been horrified that I did something like that. But it felt, it was really healing to put it out there. I was teaching a lot of young students here in Hobart at the time, and even seeing their reactions to my work, I knew that it was something that would be great for young readers to have their hands on and see. And it was just a lot of nerves, a lot of excitement, a lot of emotions. Definitely felt pretty emotional seeing it for the first time, like in print and everything. It was an emotional roller coaster. Very relieved. Feel very proud of it as well.
Yes, you should be. Sort of related to that, Molesworth have asked how many copies of Big Apple Diaries have you sold?
I'm not sure because you only get a report twice a year. But I think around 20,000 copies have sold, something like that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What an achievement. Congratulations.
Thank you.
There's lots of great questions here. Another question from Molesworth was, how long does it take to write a full chapter? And then someone else asked from Taruna, how long did it take to write the book?
Yeah, it's about a year. There aren't really chapters in this kind of book, so it's hard to kind of pinpoint a chapter. But I went back to it on and off for about a year, really with a thread that connected all of the diary entries together, because initially it was just a bunch of random diary entries and I had to make it into a connecting story with a beginning, middle, and an end. So I knew the beginning, middle, and end, and then it wasn't a straight ahead linear process. I really went back and forth a lot of times to fill in between the beginning, middle, and end to make it all connect together.
Yeah, it's a pretty good job. And while you were doing that and you were reading and rereading all of your diary entries, you must have been thinking about what it was like when you were writing your diary. And Taruna have also asked, how did it feel to write down your worries?
I think for me, as a very shy young person, it was great to have someone to tell all of these things to, all of my feelings on the page. That was just a real way for me to make sense of the world around me and to kind of release that as well, so that I, just felt, I guess, a bit lighter after writing in my diary.
Yeah, good. So it was a helpful thing to do.
It was.
Have we already asked, or have you mentioned in the video why you became an author? Because that's another question from Taruna.
Well, I never intended to be an author specifically. I always wanted to be an illustrator and an artist. So I knew that I would be in an artistic, creative role some way or another. And it was really by creating the artwork for my diary entries, I started making like little short comics based on my diaries. And it was, once I started putting these together, that I thought, maybe I could make a whole book about this. So I guess it was being inspired by other people who have done similar work, writing about their childhood experiences. Other amazing graphic novels, like all the Raina Telgemeier books, like Smile and Sisters and Drama, all based on her life. And many other books that were similar. But once I read all of those books, I thought, there's something here, and I think I've got an idea. So I didn't set out with a plan to be an author. I just set out with a plan to put this story out there, and it's all kind of happened since then.
We've nearly reached the end of the webinar, Alyssa, but I've got one last question. We nearly got through all of them, but I think this is a good one to end on. So Molesworth Primary have asked, do you like living in Tasmania?
Of course, I love it. It's just such a different place. You couldn't have a more different experience growing up in Tasmania and in New York City. And I love both of these places, and they're both like a woven part of my life and identity now. And I love that.
Must be so different being in Tassie to, growing up in Queens.
It is a lot more quiet.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, well, like I said, it's so exciting that you live here now, and it's great that you've been able to talk today to some of our schools. Is there anything else that you want to share? Oh, actually, I do remember. I was going to send through the link to a worksheet that schools can do if you'd like a follow-up activity. But it probably would be just as easy to email it through. But I'll just do a quick share screen of the web page for the YouTube recording. Let me just, so here is Alyssa's website, which is Alyssa Bermudez Art. And then on her website, there's a little Apple Diaries worksheet that you can download for free. You just got to add it to cart and then just add your email address and just some information about yourself. You don't have to pay for it. And then you'll have a lovely worksheet to do after this in class. So I highly encourage everyone to get in and go at that. But that's us today. Thank you so much, Alyssa.
Thank you so much for having me, and just waving out into the 70 students. I can't see it.
It's really hard to imagine sometimes who's watching and what's happening in the classroom. So thank you everyone who always watches. Oh, someone's done a little hand wave. That's awesome. So I think that was Sonia from Remain, from her students. So thank you everyone. Hope you have an amazing Tasmania Reads week, and there's other events that you can get to. And if you do read Big Apple Diaries, feel free to get in touch with the Peter Underwood Centre and let us know. We can, if you're interested in having Alyssa come out to your school, that's something that you can do. You can book with Alyssa. But that's it for today. Thanks everyone. See you later. Bye.
Bye.